Hello and welcome to the Glitch Report year-end wrap-up / Game of the Year Extravaganza and final episode. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for joining me on this very special edition of the Glitch Report podcast. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to check me out over at my YouTube channel. GnittWitt is where I am all over the place, but you can find everything that I do over at my Linktree. Linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. I am on Twitch. I am on TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, Threads, all those great places are where you're going to find me. If you're thinking, oh, what's GnittWitt going to be up to? He said it's the final episode. Where is he going to be? YouTube, most likely, but still kicking around doing things on YouTube, but we'll cover that towards the end of the show. Speaking of the end, it is the end of the year. And with it, we are going to be doing our Game of the Year / year-end wrap-up. In the last 2 years that we've been doing this, I have given out awards and things like that for games, different categories. If you remember those, this year it is significantly different. There are some things that are the same. There are some things that are not the same, but I want to kind of get that out of the way, right? For example, in years past, we've done like old game of the year. We've done like best game I didn't get a chance to play, most anticipated game, most disappointing, all that stuff. I don't quite have the year-end list because I just didn't really want to go through with coming up with the awards and things like that quite the same way, if I'm being honest. Mostly because I think this year, the games that I really liked and really loved, it's a pretty small list. Like, this was probably the easiest, like, top 5 list I've come up with in a while, because there were just under 5 games, or just around 5 games, I should say, that like I really truly loved and want to recognize. And you can say that's cynical, you can say whatever, but like, I just don't have like a best vibes sort of game this year, unfortunately, in the same way that I would, in years past. But what I do have is I've taken kind of this opportunity to do things a little differently. So hear me out. I'm telling you what I don't have. Here's what I do have. I have 3 different lists that we're going to go through. The first list is our bottom 5 games. These are games that I have grievances with, that I would like to sit here and complain about to you right here, right now. Games that I played that I am disappointed in, dislike, and things like that. Then I have my top 5. These are my favorite games of this year. We're going to talk about all of those games. And then we're going to do a most anticipated 2026 list as well. These are games that may or may not have, confirmed release dates, hoping that they all come out in 2026. I would hate to be wrong and say, oh, I'm really looking forward to X game, and then it doesn't even come out until, 2027 or stuff like that. And then we will wrap the podcast up. But there was one game that I really wanted to include in my top 5 list that just didn't make the cut on a technicality. That game being Marvel's Spider-Man 2. You see, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 came out on PC this year, and as someone who only has a Switch 2 and a PC to play games on, if something like a Sony exclusive comes out, I won't get a chance to play it until it is available on PC. So if I was doing a best game I didn't get a chance to play, that probably goes to Ghost of Yotei, because it's just not available on PC, right? But in a scenario where like I can't even think of that many games I didn't get a chance to play, because of platform reasons, and on top of like time reasons, but mostly platform reasons, like it's just going to go to that one game. So there you go. We do have another category. I would like to give best game I didn't get a chance to play this year to Ghost of Yotei, because I don't have a PlayStation 5, but I do have a PC, and that's where I played Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which is a fan-fucking-tastic game. Really, Really enjoyed my time with it. And I say that as someone who, I think Spider-Man 1 is good. Don't get me wrong, Spider-Man 1 is good. I just think it's a little bloated, and I think I was waiting for Spider-Man 1 to be over before it was actually done. Then that game was followed up by Spider-Man Miles Morales, which picks up pretty soon after Spider-Man 1, but it is a much shorter, leaner, tighter, focused story. And that's where I really feel like the Spider-Man series started to hit its stride. Was focusing more on just a more grounded, relatable story with just like smart, passionate characters. Not saying that the characters in the first one weren't, but I really fell in love with characters like Miles Morales and his family and friends and stuff like that with the Miles Morales game. Spider-Man 2 is bringing together the worlds of Peter Parker and Miles Morales together in a game where you play as two different Spider-Men telling one cohesive story. And damn if they don't pull it off, man. Like, seeing Miles Morales interact with, Peter Parker's friends and family and stuff like that, seeing their powers play off of each other, seeing how they interpret and present the idea of Spider-Man to the city of New York and to one another. It's easy to say, well, obviously Peter Parker, a little bit of an older Spider-Man compared to Miles Morales. Miles trying to figure out how to get into college, Peter trying to figure out how to keep and maintain a steady job and relationship and all of that stuff. So there's a lot that they can play off of one another from a storytelling perspective. And that's one of the things that like really blew me away is on paper, you think like, man, we've done so many of these fucking Spider-Man stories where there's multiple Spider-Men and mans and people and Spider this and that. And most of them are good, right? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think Spider-Man No Way Home is a lot of fun. It's, if you've seen the movie, you probably know what I mean in terms of it being fun. Really enjoyed it. I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is one of the greatest animated movies of all time. A phenomenal movie. I think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is good, but I think it does buckle under the weight of how much Spider-Man stuff can we put into, like, it's got the most, like, if you love Spider-Man and you're just like, I want the most Spider-Man, it has the most Spider-Man stuff in a movie. It's good. Into the Spider-Verse is a better movie in my opinion. So when you have experienced as much Spider-Man stuff from a multiverse, multi-Spider-Man thing as maybe I have, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who's felt this way, bringing it back down to two Spider-Man Spider-Mans in New York telling one single cohesive story, I think just it works phenomenally well. The other thing I'll say about Spider-Man 2 is that it is a game that I think is a large open world with tons of side activities and collectibles and stuff. And yet it still feels like a game that respects your time. Like, I was able to get almost every, I think 100%ed Spider-Man 2 in around like 30 something hours. And yeah, maybe it takes you longer because you're exploring the city of New York, or you're taking your time with the combat or the collectibles or the whatever. But like, there aren't a lot of like open world games that like are that lean. And maybe some would argue that it is lean to a fault, that is actually a little thin. I don't think so, because I think the emotional weight of that story carries when it needs to, and the open world mechanics and gameplay of a Spider-Man 2, I think holds up its end of the bargain. So really, I couldn't have asked for much more when it comes to Spider-Man 2. They'll probably make another one eventually. Right now, not to get ahead of ourselves, but like 2026 is supposed to be the year of Wolverine from the same people that made Spider-Man 2. So will we get a third Spider-Man game? Will we get a spin-off Spider-Man game, which has been rumored? Probably. Sony likes money. Sony likes Spider-Man, so they'll probably keep doing stuff with Spider-Man until Disney and Marvel say, fucking stop it, we're taking Spider-Man back. We're taking it back for the Lale Lulelo. That's a Metal Gear reference. Also a game that I did get a chance to play this year. Maybe I should have done categories for games. Anyways, the point is, if you haven't played Spider-Man, like obviously you need to start with 1. But if you have been, maybe you missed Miles Morales, even if you don't do a lot of the side content, a very well done story that you should get to in order to play Spider-Man 2. So old game of the year going to Spider-Man 2. Now, the way these lists are organized is weird. It's weird, and I'm going to try my best to explain what I'm going for. The bottom 5 games, which are basically the games I have grievances with, complaints, I don't like for XYZ reason, I don't think is good, whatever. Some of it's arbitrary, but just hear me out. That list is going to start from the first game I'm going to talk about is the least bad, in my opinion. It's the least bad or least disappointing or the least whatever. By the time we get to the top game in the bottom 5, that will be like the worst game that I played this year. That's like number 1 worst. Whereas with the top 5, the bottom game is going from 5 to 1. So all of these, actually both of these lists are basically going from 5 to 1, being like the lowest on the list to the top of the list. It's just that with the bottom 5, the top of the list gets worse and worse the more you go. And the top 5, the list gets better and better as you go. Without further ado, let's kick things off with the bottom 5 list of games. The first game on the list being number 5, Skate. Skate is a disappointing game that I have put more time into than I even care to admit. If there's one thing that maybe I'm going to enjoy about not doing this podcast going forward, is I won't feel so guilty about the time that I have started to spend with Skate, but that doesn't make Skate good. In fact, the more I play it, the more I think that like this game launched, this game being Skate, launched in way too early of early access. And I think its seasonal content and, live service model is maybe one of the most hollow, repetitive, half-baked experiences I've played in a while. Like, I haven't checked in on the first Descendant in a while, but even the first Descendant seemed like it had more things going for it from a live service, like sucker you into playing as much as possible sort of thing. And like, look, maybe they get there. To me, the more I see this, the more I think that they're not going to get there and that this eventually fizzles out in some way, shape, or form. And what I mean by that is, like, if you fire the game up now, it's the same kind of lifeless, bland city that you first noticed when the game launched, except now you're going to find a couple of, skate parks and stuff like that in the environment that are painted wintry and Christmassy and all of this stuff. And it's like, I was skating in a park the other day, just last night, actually, where it looked like it was all made out of ice and they had ice challenges. And if you do the ice challenges, you get like a 4th or 5th fucking currency that you can use to buy winter themed items. And I'm just like, fucking, this game does not need these repetitive bullshit challenges to get bullshit currency. There are so many currencies in not Dragon Age, in The Sims, fucking can't even talk. There are so many currency. I'm so mad already. I'm spitting mad. There's so much currency in Skate for you to unlock that it grants you more bullshit that I don't know where to begin. Like, it's mind numbing to me that, this game really just feels like a game that was made for people who want to post Skate clips online and don't actually care about the structure of the game. They just want an environment to do weird things in, to get viral clips and things like that. And for those people, that's fine. But for someone who actually enjoyed the progression, the challenges, the unlocks, and all of the stuff that came with playing through a Skate game, this has none of that. They've not added any of that stuff. In fact, all they've done is really double, triple, quadruple down on the repetitive nature of so many of those challenges. And you know what? Guess what? I'm like, maybe doing a couple challenges before bed or whatever, I got a half an hour to kill, whatever. Yeah, I'm sitting there and I'm going through those bullshit challenges because I'm a mark, because I'm an idiot. But to be honest, I'm not sitting there feeling like I'm having a great time. Like, the fun that I have in Skate is when I just find a spot to do some tricks in, just, listen to some music, throw something on in the background, YouTube video, TV show, whatever, and just skate. And you can still do that in Skate. You can still just, fuck around, do some tricks, ride around the open world, try to trick your way across the open world, whatever. You can still do that. But when you actually get to the meat of the game, it is a very cheap meat. It is tougher than a $2 steak as far as I'm concerned. It is so fucking chewy in terms of doing the same challenges over and over again to slowly unlock different loot boxes that you can spend this redundant fucking currency in. Skate is a real bummer, man. It is a real bummer. And I think the thing that makes it the most of a bummer is that it is, at its core, the actual gameplay is still relatively solid. Like, I hate to say that, like, this game has potential or anything like that when I'm so negative on it, but goddamn, there is still something to Skate. It's just so hard to find in this current game. So that is why Skate is number 5 on my bottom 5 games list. This next game, I didn't have like a lot of, high hopes for. This was not like a very hyped game for me. This wasn't a game that I was really excited about, but it was a game that caught me off guard with just how bland and empty it really is. And I think the thing about this game that even further took me off guard is that, like, this is from a company that typically has a lot of style, personality, substance to their games. And the funny thing is that there is tons of personality that comes through in this game. It's not there where it counts. That game being Mario Kart World, the game that I got with my Switch 2 when I picked up that console. And I've never been a big Mario Kart guy. I've never even been a big kart racer guy. If gun to my head, you ask me like, well, what's your best kart racer, whatever, I'm probably going to say like fucking Crash Team Racing is probably my favorite kart racer. Otherwise, it's going to be Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. That game's pretty good. Cross World seems like a decent kart racer if that's what you're into. But in general, like, when I pick up a racing game, I don't need the weapons unless I'm playing Twisted Metal, but I find myself infrequently playing Twisted Metal anyways. It's just not a thing that I turn to. But with Mario Kart World, they were like, wow, this is our biggest Mario Kart game from the perspective of all these different characters, really doubling, tripling down on Super Mario characters and enemies and allies and costumes and all of this stuff. And not only that, but it's going to have an open world for you to drive through and explore. And we're also going to incorporate a lot of elements of the open world into the racing, such as, the knockout mode, where you are basically driving from one end of the world to the other in a Cannonball Run-esque, elimination style race. There's tons of other different races that take place throughout the open world and can be combined into like tournaments and cups and all of this stuff. And the core racing is fine. They've added like grinding on rails and stuff like that and different mechanical things. The courses themselves are fine, but that open world has nothing to offer, man. Like, yeah, there are collectibles and there are challenges, but they don't feel rewarding. They feel even somehow less rewarding than the challenges in something like Skate. And it just doesn't feel enough. Like, I would never, directly compare these games. But when you think of a game like Forza Horizon and it packing so much to do inside of the open world and so much multidisciplinary racing that is trying to emulate some sort of serious, type racing at times, obviously Mario Kart can't compete, right? Because the kart racing is the kart racing. You may be in planes, you may be in boats, you may be in cars, you may be on, asphalt, you might be on, country roads and all of this stuff. But it is still it's not going to turn into a rally racing style game. It's not going to turn into a crazy off-road style game. It's not going to be serious street racing. It's going to be, you got your mushrooms, you got your, shells, you got your blue shells, your stars, and you're going to be shooting your enemies and zapping your enemies and turbo boosting. It is going to be what it is going to be. But I feel like Nintendo got to, well, this is, I guess, what it means to have a open world in a Mario Kart game, and this is how the kart racing is going to feel, and then they just stopped. The other thing that really bums me out is the music in this game is fucking fantastic. It is like some of the best. We're going to talk other great Nintendo music later on the show, but like, man, it's that music is so freaking good. I found myself listening to it on YouTube because it's not available on the Nintendo podcast app, unfortunately, or not the Nintendo podcast app, the Nintendo music app, which I find incredibly annoying. So I can't even listen to the music on the Nintendo music app as I want to because they haven't put it there, which is annoying. But say like they have select tracks on the music app, and none of these look like the music from Mario Kart World. So even the best parts of the game, I feel like, get in the way of, what I would come to expect from, Nintendo stepping up their game with an open world Mario Kart game. It's just a bummer, man. It's just a bummer, and it feels at times more hollow, shallow, and lifeless than even something like Skate, which I wasn't expecting from the people at Nintendo. The next game is a game that I've put a lot of time into as well. I couldn't necessarily tell you how much, but I know I've spent some time with it. But that doesn't make the game good. And in fact, the more I played of it, the more, I realized I was slow. We're talking about Call of Duty Black Ops 7, okay? A game that I have maybe the most complicated feelings on this year entirely, right? I know that this is a very arbitrary list in terms of feelings and redundancies and all that stuff, but like, if you listen to the podcast where I talked about Call of Duty Black Ops 7, I had some shit that I needed to work through when I talked about that game. And now here we are. The chickens, the cows have come home to roost, whatever the saying is. Call of Duty Black Ops 7 there's a lot of content in Call of Duty Black Ops 7. I can't fault them for filling that game full of things to do. The problem is that the very core of Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is overcooked. It is burnt to a crisp in a lot of elements. And it is a game that I think functionally fails to not only be a follow-up to Call of Duty Black Ops 6, but also I think is maybe one of the best examples of maybe this whole annualized franchise does not work. Even if you give them, the ability to work a game back to back, right? I can't tell you. Like, I'm guessing it was like 2 years development for Black Ops 7 and maybe 2 years for Black Ops 6. I don't know exactly, but like going from 6 to 7 over the course of 1 year has done a horrible things to Call of Duty. On top of that, this was a really bad year for Call of Duty to have a bad year, considering how good of a year games like Battlefield 6 and Arc Raiders had. Do I particularly love Battlefield 6? No. I almost made it. It almost made it to my bottom 5 because of how awful that campaign is. But like, to an extent, that Black Ops 7 campaign, I like it better because I like Call of Duty more than I like Battlefield. But it is also worse in the sense that like it infuriated a lot more people. It made really wild, misguided changes to the structure of that game. Like, I say what you will about Battlefield 6, but at least you can pause the goddamn game when you're playing the campaign, right? Like that's where we're at in terms of splitting fucking hairs over here about what makes Call of Duty Black Ops 7 worse than Battlefield 6. The writing in Battlefield 6 is so fucking awful and is so dumb, and the Black Ops 7 writing isn't much better, but goddamn, at least you can pause the game Black in Battlefield 6, right? Like you can pause the game. That's the difference, right? But I just think that, like, there's been a lot of criticism about the use of, AI generated art in Call of Duty Black Ops 7 and things like that. And the more I looked into the leveling system for Call of Duty Black Ops 7, the things you unlock, the things that you get, a lot of it is like AI generated, like art and trinkets, and oh, here's a like loading screen, or oh, this is a player icon. And it all just kind of looked like shit. So at some point, in a skate-esque fashion, I started asking myself, okay, like, even if I do like, even if I don't mind the extraction shooter mode of going, dropping into the environment, doing objectives in the large open world, extracting out and doing all this stuff, even if I like that stuff, why am I still doing it if I don't even care for what it is that I'm actually unlocking as part of the continued progression system in Black Ops 7? I think that multiplayer is fine, but again, like the carrot on the stick, the carrot broke off of that stick in Black Ops 7 in a way that I really wasn't expecting. Despite liking some elements of the game, and despite there being so much stick and carrot to consume, it really feels like a game that just, they didn't have a lot of time to finish it. And instead of undercooking it the way that they did with Modern Warfare 3, and it's feeling like, that campaign is really short and really doesn't go anywhere, and a lot of the multiplayer stuff is really repetitive from last year. This feels like they just, had about, 5 minutes to cook a steak that needed, 10. And I don't know, it's a weird analogy, but just roll with me. And so much of it just feels way overdone, way overcooked, and burnt to a crisp. And it's, you could have maybe predicted it when they didn't show a lot of Black Ops 7 up into the release of it, right? They were just like, oh, it's all weird mindfuck trippy stuff. Maybe it's all in your head, but it's the future. But is it still in your head in the future, or is the future in your head, or whatever the fuck's going on? They didn't show a lot of it. It just looked weird for the sake of being weird. And unfortunately, like, Black Ops 7 can't even be weird for the sake of being weird. It's just weird because it's a failure. If that makes any sense. It's it maybe isn't the worst Call of Duty game that I've played. I still think Ghosts is far more boring and thus a worse game. I've talked about the Call of Duty games that you should play, especially if you like campaigns, and maybe those World War II campaigns are fun. I just don't care about participating in World War II video games and shit. But Black Ops 7 is a game that probably didn't need, if hindsight being 2020, they shouldn't have even put this game out. In hindsight, this shouldn't have even existed for how big of a flop it is. And I will say that, like, Activision basically put out as close to an apology as we're going to get about the state of Black Ops 7, saying, oh, we're not going to do, double games back to back and shit like that. And whatever. I don't know, dude. It's Black Ops 7 is an exhausting game to think about. It's an exhausting game to look at and care about. And that's why it is number 3 on my bottom 5 list. Here's a game that is on my bottom 5 list, partially because it has had multiple tries to justify its existence and convince me to care. And at almost every step of the way, it has failed. Now, I need to double check what the name of this game is, because I believe this game has failed so badly that they have renamed it since its release. Oh boy, fuck. Okay. We're talking about Splitgate 2. Splitgate 2, number 2 on my list of bottom 5 games. And I mean, you could argue that, like, Splitgate 2 was doomed to fail the moment they went out on the Summer Game Fest stage with Jeff Keighley with a hat that said make first person shooters great again. Like once you start memeing it up with language used by the MAGA movement and Donald Trump, like maybe you've already lost the plot once you start doing that. But hey, you know what? Splitgate 1 was a game that I never played, but seemed very popular up until they killed it. Splitgate really trying to bring back that classic arena shooter feel, you know, mixing of like Unreal Tournament or Quake with Halo. And, you know, it's like, it maybe isn't your dad's shooter, but it's like your older brother's shooter, maybe. If your older brother was like in his 40s, maybe this is like the older brother shooter that you never had a chance to play. So it came out and it flopped. And once it started to flop and the numbers really dried up shortly after the release, that's when I decided that I was going to get into Splitgate 2 and play it and see what's up. I've put like 2 hours into this game, and like functionality wise, it is a relatively sound game. Like it is trying to be your Halo and classic arena shooter with portals. That's their big thing, is they want you to be able to activate portals in the environment, to teleport around and catch your enemies by surprise. And oh, by the way, I should say, they've changed the name of the game from Splitgate 2 to Splitgate Arena Reloaded, which, boy, putting Reloaded in your name probably doesn't fucking help. And I should say that as of an hour ago, people have been posting about the game being dead on Steam. So I might just be kicking a game while it's down. The point is that Splitgate, you know, Arena Reloaded Combat, whatever the fuck they're calling it this week, is a game that the more I played it, the more I just thought to myself, it's trying to be a game that appeals to maybe a certain group of first person shooter fans that don't feel like they're being served by, you know, they don't feel served by, you know, military games like Call of Duty or Battlefield. They maybe don't care about, you know, the team-based stuff in something like Overwatch or Marvel Rivals. They want to just run around and frag their opponents. They just want to, you know, run around with shotguns and submachine guns and just, you know, fast-paced first-person shooter multiplayer action. And it's funny that like Splitgate 2, Arena Reloaded, whatever, functionality-wise provides it and still fails to actually capture what made stuff like, you know, Quake 3 Arena and Unreal Tournament great. Like, I think even that Doom 2016 multiplayer is a better arena shooter experience than Splitgate. Like, I think if you wanted to play an arena shooter right now, it's a much slower game, but like Halo Infinite is a far better arena shooter experience and is also free to play. I mean, Splitgate 2 is free to play as well, but they have tried to fill it full of monetization that people didn't care about. They put in a battle royale mode that fucking sucked. It's maybe like the worst battle royale mode I've ever played in a game. Splitgate 2 is just one failure after, like one profound failure after another for a game that if you just put your hands on the controls wouldn't actually seem that bad. So the part where they have somehow figured out some elements of the gameplay and packaged it in such a piece of shit experience top to bottom is really impressive. And the fact that they've been able to do this not once, but twice makes it that Splitgate 2 is my number 2 game on my bottom 5 list. Splitgate 2 is a weird fucking failure of a game that if I was still doing the podcast, I'm sure it wouldn't be long in 2026 where we heard some dramatic news coming from the team that are making it. Also, apparently, they're going to be bringing back the awful Battle Royale mode. They're going to make a mode called Arena Royale. I don't know. They were giving away $25,000 to a community challenge, which I'm not saying I'm good at Splitgate 2, but I will say that there are so few people playing Splitgate 2 that I might have actually had a chance at making some money because of the low player count. I'm just going to go to the Steam database for a moment. On Monday, June 2nd of this year, the game peaked with 25,785 players. It lasted until June 9th, where it had 25,654 players. Right now, we are sitting at, and that's peak. That's like peak player count. In the last 24 hours, Splitgate 2, or Splitgate Arena Reloaded, whatever you want to call it, has a peak player count of 895 on Steam. That's all I can do. That's all I can work with. But their major release, like they took the game down. They said, we're going to bring it back. They took the game down, and it went from 184 players on December 8th to 2,297 players December 15th. And now we're looking at under 1,000. Like, this game's not on my list because it is unpopular. It is on my list because they have managed to set up, if you ever seen that Sideshow Bob joke from The Simpsons where he keeps stepping on the rakes, this game keeps stepping on the rakes. Like, it keeps setting the rakes on the ground and then not just stepping on them, but like jumping on these rakes to hit them in the face. And this game has to be criticized for its profound, misguided attempts at not only bringing in this style of gameplay, but maintaining an audience that wants this type of game. Like, I would play an arena shooter. I would play an arena shooter. Like, I might not play it all the time, but like, as someone who's dropped Black Ops 7, like, I don't really have a shooter that I'm regularly playing. I guess I could go back to Overwatch, which I did, or Fortnite or something. But like, I would play some of this game, but it sucks and no one cares. And it's frustrating. And I think my frustration with it more than anything is what makes it the number 2 game. All right. You want to talk about frustration? I want to pull up some details here for just a moment, because God damn it, I have a point that I need to prove. Last year, Black Ops 6 was one of my favorite games of 2024. In 2023, one of my favorite games was Alan Wake 2. So like, excuse me for being a little frustrated over the state of some of the games that these developers went on to make in a very short period of time, to end up in the situation that we are now in, where I'm like, this is actually like the worst thing. It's just fucking not, it's not good. But regardless, my number 1 bottom 5 game of the year is a little game from your friends and mine at Remedy, FBC Firebreak. Everything that I just said about Splitgate 2, with the exception of the monetization and the gross developer stuff, like almost everything I had to say about FBC Firebreak, everything I almost had to say about Splitgate 2, you could almost apply to FBC Firebreak. The difference is that no one was fucking asking for the type of game that FBC Firebreak is. So not only is FBC Firebreak a terrible, bare bones, half-baked, cooperative, 3-player shooter experience, no one was asking for this style of gameplay, and no one was asking for this style of gameplay from the people best known for making like badass single-player story games. Like, at no point while I was playing Control, and I thought to myself, no point while I was playing Control did I think, wow, I would really like to run around in these same environments in a first-person perspective and do some of the most mind-numbingly boring objectives and meaningless tasks in a first-person shooter with 2 other people that seem just about as bored as me. No point, right? At no point did I think, wow, they should really, take the environments of Control and make me run through and look at them multiple times in order to grind out, player leveling and weapons and attachments and abilities and perks. Like, I know that there are probably some people who want a game like Back 4 Blood or a game like Left 4 Dead or one of those more co-op focused shooter experiences. I would say if you're looking for a co-op shooter experience, you're way better off playing Call of Duty Black Ops 7 Zombies mode. You're better off playing like the fucking like some sort of Fortnite cooperative mode. If you wanted to shoot stuff with your friends and not have other human players shoot at you, I think this might be one of the worst experiences you can have. It's really how I feel at this point in time about FBC Firebreak. And it's so disappointing because the player count is crap. I'm not even going to talk about the player count, but they also put this game out for paid money and they put it out for free on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. It still couldn't attract an audience. It still sucked. And they also were like talking about, oh, we're going to do a big update, really turn this around. I played the game after they tried to turn it around. It seemed just as bad, if not worse, because I was just annoyed by its entire existence at that point. It's funny. They on November 19th, they put out an update being like, oh, voice chat is out now. And I'm like, oh, okay. Voice chat. Great. There's no one to play this game with, let alone talk to. So why would I do it? Why would I guess my question is why? Like the FBC Firebreak more than any other game, my question is why? Why did you do this? Why did you think it was going to be good? What is the point? Like, was this a tax write-off? Is this like, are you laundering money through this video game? What point why didn't anyone stop this? Why? We just didn't need it. It got like, maybe the people who run the PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass, promotions are so fucking stupid that they threw money at this game and basically FBC Firebreak made money hand over fist because Sony and Microsoft paid to have it as one of their top tier, live service games for the month. I don't know, but it is, like there's a part where you're just like shooting Post-it notes and it never stops feeling stupid. Like at no point is it, oh, it's cool and spooky and kooky and weird that I'm in the office and I'm shooting evil Post-it notes. It's just like, why the fuck is like, who thought shooting Post-it notes was going to be fun? There's a lot of things around like the elements, like you can be set on fire and you can like run and like, oh, one of the characters has like water cannon and you can like put out the enemies that are on fire with water. That'll do damage. But if you put out your friends that are on fire, that'll heal them. It never feels like fun and dynamic and interesting. The powers don't like, part of what makes Control so good is like, it's a fun shooter with cool guns and stuff like that. But you also have these really awesome, like fucking Jedi, like throw shit at motherfucker powers that like, it just doesn't exist in FBC Firebreak. Holy shit. There's nothing to get out of it if you're a fan of Alan Wake. There's nothing to get out of it if you're a fan of Control. And I don't think there's anything to get out of it if you're a fan of these type of cooperative shooter experiences. It is rotten top to bottom. Like there are things that I can see about fucking Splitgate 2. There are things I can see about Call of Duty Black Ops 7. There are things I can see about like Mario Kart World and Skate. There's just like, there is like something of slight value that I can grasp that makes those games somewhat worth it, that are almost worth defending. There's nothing I can defend. Like it's not offensively bad, but it is bone fucking dry. It was dead on arrival, and it's disappointing to see such a miserable game by one of my favorite developers, which is why FBC Firebreak is my number one. Bottom 5 worst games of the year. Whew. Man, we got through that relatively easy. A little bit of rambling, but that's okay. Maybe we can tighten it up towards the next bit here. we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk the top 5 games of the year. Following that, we're going to have our most anticipated games of the year. Might have another break in between then and there. And then we're going to talk about the podcast and content plans. So stick around. We will be right back. All right, welcome back to the podcast. It is time to talk about my top 5 games of the year. We're going to kick things off with number 5, a game about digging a hole. This is a short video game. I will admit right here, right now, it is the shortest game that I played this year. But the thing that I like, a video game that knows what it is. I like a video game that is confident in itself. I like a game that, shows up and does not waste your time. I like a game that just so effortlessly and easily lets you slip in and out of it, and away you go. Like, for example, it took me like 2 hours to complete a game about digging a hole, and it was a lot of fun. If you don't know what a game about digging a hole is, it is a game in which you buy a new house. It's a first-person game. You buy a new house. You then start digging a hole in said house, and you will find different materials and gems and all sorts of goodies that you will then use to upgrade your shovel. You'll have a bigger backpack. You'll have more energy to go deeper into the hole, and all of these things. It's a very rinse, wash, repeat sort of game. But I found it effective. I found it charming. I found it a lot of fun. Even stuff like, as you get deeper into the hole, it gets dark, so you need to place like lights so that you know where you're going. But also, you don't have to just dig in a straight line. You can dig, all throughout this relatively large backyard and find things to upgrade your shovel, your backpack, your jetpack, and all of this really neat stuff, because you use the jetpack to like fly your way out of the hole. But like, if you don't have the thing, you're going to be climbing out. And anyways, it is a very confident, it is a very just lean game, and I really appreciate that. It also tells a bit of a cute little story. It's not like super long or anything like that. It's not it's not some crazy story, but in terms of why you would be called to this house to dig this hole, what happens when you get to the bottom of that hole, and things like that. I think it's like a fun little, it's a fun little thing. It's a fun little thing. And that is why I would say that a game about digging a hole, a fun little thing that I enjoyed this year, is my number 5 in my top 5 games of the year. Now, there's only one game on this list that I didn't complete. There's one game on this list I didn't complete. So you could make an argument that it is arbitrarily placed on this list, either too low or too high, depending on how you feel. But it is one of my favorite games of all time. I am so happy to have it back and in a modern format with some wonderful improvements. I'm talking about my number 4 game, Final Fantasy Tactics: The Evil East Chronicles. You can make an argument that if I finished it, it might be higher, because it'd be a little bit, like it'd be a complete experience that I could more stand on business about, but I just got distracted with other games. I'm familiar with the game. So, Final Fantasy Tactics to me was about like, hey, I wanted to check out as much of the game as I could to make sure that they did right by the game. And they absolutely did right by the game. If you have never played Final Fantasy Tactics before, this is absolutely the game to get into. If you've played other Final Fantasy Tactics, but maybe not this one, this is the Tactics game, in my opinion. No offense to Tactics Advance, but hey, Final Fantasy Tactics 1 doesn't have the law cards, and for that, it's the better game. But the changes that they made to the story, the inclusion of the voice acting, I think really strengthens the core messaging of Final Fantasy Tactics. I would argue that Final Fantasy Tactics is a less light-hearted game than other Final Fantasy games. This is a game that covers things like capitalism, things like class warfare. It talks about the manipulation of, armed service members, both in active duty and the manipulation that those people experience once they return home and maybe aren't the same person they were when they left for war and things like that. And it is heady. It is a lot to chew on from a story perspective. I get that. But it is, I think, probably the most mature story that Final Fantasy has told, at least in my experience. I think it is the most relatable to the world that we currently live in. What you think about Final Fantasy, it's always about, like, I don't know, there's a guy and a lady, because there's always one of each, and there's a crystal, and there's amnesia, and I don't know, that's whatever, figure it out. And Final Fantasy Tactics is not like that. It is like, no, man, like, these people fought in this war, came back fucked up, and are now being, coerced into becoming criminals because the only thing they know how to do is kill people. And the people that are in charge of hiring those people are the nobles that, didn't have to see any warfare, shed any blood, but are more corrupt and making it, like, it's a lot. But it's a wonderful story. The voice acting that they've included is incredibly well done. I think that really sells the story. I can see you maybe being like, whatever, like, the story is maybe up its own ass, or it's too much, it's too heady, but that voice acting really grounds it, I think, and makes it more palatable for people who maybe haven't experienced the story before in Tactics. The other thing I would say is that gameplay is still rock solid. It is still one of the best tactics experiences in my humble opinion. Between the leveling of the individual characters, the individual classes, the combining of different abilities. So, for example, you have, each character can be its own class, or choose different classes. So you can pick, say, the main character, Ramza, and Ramza can be a soldier, a paladin, an archer, a thief, black mage, white mage, time mage, ninja, samurai, all these different things, right? And in order to be those characters, you have to meet certain requirements, like, get to level 3 as a soldier, play as a soldier for a couple of, matches or whatever. And eventually you'll be leveled up enough to become a knight. But the soldier can do things that the knight can't, and the knight can do things that the soldier can't. But if you were to, say, spend time leveling up the unique abilities of, say, the knight or the soldier or the archer, you could end up in a scenario where you have an archer who maybe has a crossbow in one hand and a sword in the other, and become this very dynamic, potentially jack of all. We can only combine 2 classes abilities, so you can't be a total jack of all trades, but it is a very fun, playful system that is still deep and rich and rewarding, as well as it is just experimental. Like, I don't know, man, you want to be a fucking an archer that can cast fire? Fucking go for it, dude. Is it going to be the most optimal, experience for that character? No, but also you're not committing to anything, so you can always change it. If you want to be like, nah, man, my squad of 5, characters is all ninjas, no potions. Hey, man, more power to you. It's very playful from a gameplay perspective. I think it is maybe a little hard to wrap your mind around at the start. I don't know if it even tutorializes you that well. It's going to be used, like, if you really cared about the optimal, experience of leveling these characters and unlocking abilities, you're probably going to be staring at a bunch of numbers. But for me, it's just, I want to be a ninja. I want to be a samurai. I want to be a monk. I want to be this. I want to be that. And let's just go ahead and figure out what character classes I need to play as to get to that point, unlock them, and then just have fun, learning those different character classes and abilities and having a grand old time. Final Fantasy Tactics is awesome. If you've never played a Final Fantasy game, this is very different from other Final Fantasy games. Even the Final Fantasy games that have turn-based combat do not have turn-based combat the way Tactics does. With Tactics, you are looking at a battlefield. Each character takes turns moving throughout the battlefield, getting into position, attacking enemies, using abilities, potions, items, that sort of thing. Versus in something like, traditional turn-based Final Fantasy, you just stand across from each other and just take turns fighting. If you played 7 or 9 or 10, or even stuff like, I don't know, like that recent South Park game, or Expedition 33. Like that's the kind of thing of like, you stand where you are and fight. Whereas with tactics, you are moving across the battlefield, getting into position so that you can maybe climb up to a hill so that your archer will have a better line of sight to to its enemies. Or maybe you are, a injured warrior or soldier who needs to heal, but you're being attacked by archers. So if you get to a higher point of vantage, they won't be able to hit you as easily because they are aiming upwards, which makes it difficult. Long story short, Final Fantasy Tactics is a hell of a game. In general, the Ivalice Chronicles is the best version of that game that you can play as far as I'm concerned. So that is why Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles, is number 4 in my top 5 games of the year. I went back and forth with this game for so long. I thought, you know what? This is my game of the year. And then another game came out that I played, and I was like, oh, is this better than that other game? It's really hard to say. But I would say that regardless of where it ended up on this list, I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is a fan-fucking-tastic game. And if you get a Switch 2, that's the game to play. It's certainly not Mario Kart World. No offense to the Switch 2 upgraded versions of stuff like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. No offense to Cyberpunk, 2077 on Switch 2, or Yakuza on Switch 2. Like, the game to get with the Switch 2 is Donkey Kong Bonanza. And it's for a couple of reasons. The first thing I would say is that Donkey Kong Bonanza is like the game that I want to show people. Like if I had somebody come over and wanted to, look at what's up with video games, or I haven't seen a Switch 2 or whatever, like that, like Donkey Kong Bonanza is the game that I show people, not necessarily from like a graphical perspective. I think it is a great looking game. It looks fantastic on Switch 2. It looks good on the TV and the handheld. It's a good looking game no matter how you slice it. But I think there's something to like the raw, pure experience of just running around as Donkey Kong, destroying the environment, and watching that environment react to Donkey Kong's incredible sense of power and destruction. But then also seeing how that progresses throughout the game of being like, okay, like moment 1, it feels good to run around and punch things and break up the environment and find coins and all of these, and bananas and all this stuff. Like it's fun to just do the basic shit that you get moment 1. And I'm going to stress that I feel like so many games start out with you feeling like a weak chump, whatever type of game it is, whatever it is that you're doing. Like Donkey Kong Bonanza, you feel like a bad motherfucker from the moment you start playing the game. And it only gets crazier and more powerful from there. What a fun, roller coaster of collecting powers and abilities and growing your arsenal of destruction and all of that stuff. The only like really complaint I have about Donkey Kong Bonanza is there are times where the game is less interested in you doing destruction and manipulating the environment to solve the puzzles and the platforming, and more about you doing like expert, precise, jumps and precision climbing and stuff like that, which is where I'm like, like you're not really playing to your strengths, but it doesn't happen that much. They mostly kind of put it at the end of the game. But it's Pauline is a very adorable, young Pauline meeting Donkey Kong, and their relationship of, is very adorable. The music is awesome, with each different variation of the Kong abilities that you get, Zebra and elephant and ostrich and all this stuff. Like there's always unique music to play when you get those abilities and you use them, and that music is a ton of fun. The music just exploring those, larger environments are great. Have I mentioned that it just fucking feels good? Like it just breaking stuff, punching stuff, climbing stuff, jumping on stuff, just feels phenomenal in Donkey Kong Bonanza. It is like maybe the best gameplay, with the exception of maybe the next game we're going to talk about, just the best raw gameplay experience I experienced this year. It really is. I can't recommend Donkey Kong Bonanza enough, especially for people who are picking up a Switch 2 now, or maybe have a Switch 2, but haven't gotten around to it. Like, to me, Donkey Kong Bonanza is the Switch 2 killer app, as far as I'm concerned. And that's why Donkey Kong Bonanza is number 3 on my top 5 game of the year list. Number 2 is a game that I also have some slight grievances with, but the pros certainly outweigh the cons. And when I think about this game, it is, if Donkey Kong Bonanza is like a euphoric drug trip, let's have some mushrooms and just break stuff, man. Ball Pit is like speed. It is like hard. It is the type of drugs that it is hard drugs. If Donkey Kong Bonanza is like smoke a little weed, do a little mushrooms, and just have a fun time, Ball Pit is some bad shit in your body that happens to feel very, very good. Ball Pit is a run-based, roguelike, brick breaking action game where instead of, if you've played Arkanoid or one of those types of brick breaker games where you launch the ball with the paddle to hit the bricks and it comes back down, imagine if you were doing that, but it was like a shooter and you're dodging enemy attacks and you're getting different upgrades for different balls and you're unlocking new characters and new abilities, and it's run based. So you earn experience and currency to upgrade your characters and last longer. But you can also discover new stuff in the environment, and you can do these things where, like, okay, you're starting off with a character and this character shoots fireballs and it will, spread fire throughout the enemies, slowly damaging them. But, you can unlock a fireball that combines with ice. So it will not only set enemies on fire and slowly damage them over time, but it'll also slow down their movement speed because you are facing up on the screen. The enemies are coming down towards you and you're trying to shoot them before they get to you and hurt you and kill you eventually over time. The enemies will also shoot different projectiles at you. So you're dodging the projectiles, on this path forward while also, shooting your balls and aiming and all that stuff. It is a wild time as far as I'm concerned. And, I always enjoyed seeing what the next upgrade is, what the next ability is, what I could combine stuff with and be surprised by the game being like, oh yeah, if you combine the spider, the spider ball with the bomb ball, you can create a shotgun ball that will blast mini balls once it hits an enemy and all this cool, crazy shit. It is on Game Pass. I played it on Game Pass. I want to say it's like $15 or something. It's on PlayStation. It's everywhere as far as I'm concerned. How much is Ball Pit? Yeah, it's like Ball Pit's like $20. Excuse me, $20. And it's a game that, like, I think the moment you play it, you will get hooked on it. The only real grievance I have with it is that outside of the run-based gameplay, you are building a town and then using the ball-breaking gameplay to collect resources in the town, upgrade the buildings. And I think that's just tedious. I think that part is slow. But when you're actually in the middle of shit and you're, combining two different characters, to get their different abilities of like, okay, you have a shield that you can use to bounce the ball back to you and back to the enemies. And every time you bounce the ball with the shield, you are increasing the damage that the weapon, the ball does. But then also you get like this fucking laser that'll just go through like a whole row or column of enemies, or you can combine the two, the column and the row balls together, and it'll just like do like this cross pattern and just cut through all of the enemies. It's fucking rad. It is a wild game. It can be maybe a little overwhelming once everything is firing on all cylinders and shit's going crazy, but it Ball Pit is a bad game, and I say that as in a good way. Just a ton of fun. I'm always down for like a good run-based roguelike game. Unfortunately, I didn't get that this year with Hades 2. I'm not gonna sit here and pick on Hades 2, but I mean, the thing about Hades 2 is that I wanted a good story, and they didn't give her that. They didn't give that to me, and that's fine. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Ball Pit is a wild time. It is just raw fucking nose candy as far as I'm concerned. And that's why Ball Pit is number 2 on my top 5 game of the year list. So I complained that I didn't get a great story in Hades 2. Didn't get a great story in, Call of Duty. I didn't care for the story in Expedition 33. Like, game of the year, Claire of Expedition 33. I could not have given less of a fuck about the characters and story in that game. It just did nothing for me. So I felt like, and Battlefield 6 has a terrible story. With the exception of Final Fantasy Tactics, which was a game that had a story that I was already rather familiar with, I just felt like maybe this year, like, stories didn't matter as much to me. This year, I didn't care as much about the story. I cared more about the gameplay. Case in point, Ball Pit, which has almost no story. Donkey Kong Bonanza, which has a cute, rather simple story. Final Fantasy Tactics, which I love the gameplay as much as I love the story. And a game about digging a hole, which you dig a hole in that game and there is a story, but there's, it's not crazy. So I just thought, like, you know what, like, maybe for whatever reason, I'm just not relating to a lot of the stories being told in games this year. I didn't, play all the big story-based games like Ghost of Yotei, or, I didn't play, Silk Song did nothing for me, and which it has a story to it and things like that. Like, I didn't care for, Expedition 33. I didn't play Ghost of Yotei. I didn't play, games like Death Stranding 2 on the beach. I, didn't play Metal Gear Delta. There was a time this year where I just thought, you know what, maybe like I just don't care right now about the stories that are being told this year in games. And then I started to think about like the other kind of stories in, popular culture and media and television that I have struggled to relate with in some time. And I think about superheroes. Like, I've been inundated with superhero pop culture and media for a very long time. I'm sure most people have. And I don't even fucking read comic books. And I'm just sitting here being like, oh my God, Spider-Man this, X-Men that, and all this yada, 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 Batman and Superman and whatever. And like this year, like I thought Thunderbolts was a fucking terrible movie. I thought Captain America Brave New World was somehow even worse than Thunderbolts. I loved Superman, the movie from this year, because to me, I think it does a really great job of, representing what it means to be a superhero in the modern world, whereas I don't think Captain America does that. And I certainly don't think Thunderbolts does that. So I maybe kind of left my time thinking about, and I also tried watching The Boys this year, and I was just like, The Boys fucking rancid. It's just such a gross, cynical, unfun show that just bored me to tears and just made me annoyed. So I felt like with stories and games and popular superhero culture and media, I was just like, man, maybe I'm just like checking out, man. And then a little game called Dispatch came along, and I kind of ignored it. I was just like, like Dispatch, the idea of, not Marvel or DC, superheroes, you kind of are playing as the game. The game Dispatch is about you working with a team of, kind of the other guys, sort of like, oh, we're not the best superheroes. In fact, maybe we're really shit. Like, I was just like, I don't know. Like, I've been through Guardians of the Galaxy. I've been through Suicide Squad. I get it. Like, sometimes the superheroes that suck can end up being the best superheroes, the really good ones, and all that stuff. And I just kind of ignored Dispatch for the longest time. And then I started thinking about, like, what are the games that I should really give a chance to before the year is over. Like, it was basically a thing of, like, looking at my top 5 list. I thought to myself, something's got to give, right? I can't just keep bouncing off games like Silk Song and Expedition 33 and Hades 2 and Avowed and the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remaster, or I can't keep bouncing off stuff like the Outer Worlds 2. Like, something's got to give, right? And it's not like I was playing these games and feeling like I loved other games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 or Assassin's Creed Shadows more. It wasn't like I didn't want to approach this top 5 list of like, oh, by default, these are the games that I, liked the most. Like, these are games I genuinely enjoy. Again, some caveats and stuff like that, but like, I really want to approach this list of like, these are games I truly feel passionate about. So then, fortunate enough to have a friend of mine gift me a copy of Dispatch over Christmas, and I started playing it, and I was like, you know what? There might be something to this game. For those of you that don't know, Dispatch is made by Ad Hoc Studios. Ad Hoc Studios are former Telltale people. I was going over the list of like ex-Telltale studios and looking at like, okay, which ones have kind of risen from the ashes of Telltale. Telltale's technically still around in some way, shape, or form, but Dispatch is the game. It is my game of the year. Dispatch is also the game that you should play if you have felt maybe abandoned by the lack of Telltale in recent years. Dispatch is my favorite game of 2025. You play as Robert Robertson, a character who through things and circumstances, I'm not going to spoil. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil Dispatch. But you play as this character, Robert Robertson, voiced by Aaron Paul, and the main game is you managing a team of superheroes as they patrol and serve like a certain like kind of, district of Los Angeles. So the main gameplay loop is you looking at a computer screen, and you'll see something like, oh, a cat is stuck in a tree. And you'll be like, okay, here are the heroes on my team. And each hero has different stats. There's combat, there's defense, there's mobility, there's charisma, there's intelligence, right? And it'll be like, okay, cat stuck in a tree. Which hero is the best hero to go answer that call? And you'll send them, and they'll have different chances of success and things like that. And they come back and they need to rest because they're tired. And basically it's like an 8-episode long adventure game, structured very similarly to other Telltale games. The difference is that the main gameplay loop does not involve you running around and interacting with an environment. If you're used to walking through an environment in something like The Walking Dead the Walking Dead game or the Batman game or something like that, you don't walk around any environments in this game whatsoever. I'm not saying that you spend your entire time looking at a computer screen. You certainly don't. There are plenty of cutscenes with choices and quick time events that I won't get into, but this is not an adventure game in which you run around and physically go run and talk to people. This is more of a playable TV show with gameplay elements in it. You know, think about a game like Immortality or Her Story or something like that, like, which those have different gameplay. I'm just like, you don't run around in this game. You don't go talk to people. This is not like some Leisure Suit Larry sort of adventure game where you're putting items in your inventory and you'll be like, oh, I have to give the rubber chicken to the person to open the door for me to get this key to do this. Like, no, like, this is not that. This is more like playable television, which is funny because I like to think of myself as a gameplay first kind of guy. I like to think of myself as like, you know, I will suffer through a bad story if the gameplay is fun. But the thing is that like the gameplay is good enough in this game. But the thing that really blew me away was the story, the writing, the dialogue, the characters, especially as someone who feels pretty cynical about like a lot of superhero media right now. Dispatch is wonderful, pretty much top to bottom. I will say from a gameplay perspective, you know, you also can do hacking mini games. Like there's a part where it'll be like, hey, we're having trouble, you know, turning off the water in this area that's flooding. And can you, despite the whatever superheroes you sent, to be like, oh, can you try to hack the power grid to turn off the water? And there's hacking mini games and stuff, and you know, that I won't like super get into. But you are basically, there is puzzle solving in the game as well in the form of hacking mini games. But again, you are not running around talking to people. It is much more of a linear experience than even something like Batman or The Walking Dead. There are times where, you know, superhero shit happens and you are hitting A or hitting the L2 or R2 and, you know, doing quick time events. But it is, again, I can't stress enough, this is not like some deep gameplay experience, but I don't think it needs to be. I don't think it needs to be. I think the depth and the heart of the soul of Dispatch is, one, a fucking phenomenal performance by Aaron Paul. Like, this is some of the best Aaron Paul acting, voice acting, whatever you want to say, in a very, very long time. He really nails it with not only his presentation of Robert as maybe something of an everyman at times, but also a guy who is to be taken seriously, to be respected, to be looked at as somebody who is dispatching these heroes who maybe aren't the best heroes and should be treated with respect, right? The you know, getting the team to listen to you and getting the team to take you seriously, getting the team to see themselves as people capable of doing good, even when they don't maybe have good guy powers. Like, there's one character in the game who is like a hybrid, like, bat person, and he's like super smart, but he just, because he's smart, he just like uses his smarts to like run Ponzi schemes and like, you know, short sell Bitcoin and all. Like, he's just like kind of like a financial bro asshole, right? But like, he's also a fucking bat who could fly and like can be multiple places at once. Well, not multiple places at once, but like get to places really quickly with his mobility and speed. And like, he's very smart. So if he needed to talk to somebody to calm them down or reason with somebody, he's capable of doing that. But like, he's also just like the type of guy who would, you know, sell out the American public to make $1 and shit like that. Like, you know, his story is a lot of fun. The choices involving, like, there are tons of choices. There's so many different fun choices to pick at. I'm really talking around because I don't want to spoil the game. I don't even want to allude to, you know, the nature of a lot of the characters and what they can and can't be and who they are, where they come from, even with Robert. I will just say that it is an incredibly well acted, like, even the people that I didn't think were going to give great, like fucking Young Gravy is in this game. If you don't know Young Gravy, go listen to Mr. Clean. But I wasn't even expecting Young Gravy to be a terrific voice actor, but like, his portrayal as Golem in this game is fantastic. Laura Bailey as Blonde Blazer is wicked. Alana Pierce does a great job. Matthew Mercer as the main bad guy is a lot of fun. But in terms of like who is on your team, like the heroes that you end up maybe having on your team, that can change over the course of your different choices. How they respond to you, as you are dispatching these heroes and leveling, you actually level them up. So you'll send somebody on a mission, they'll come back and you can put a skill point into that: charisma, mobility, defense, combat, intelligence, things like that. So you can potentially get a character that is actually really good at fighting if you needed to send somebody for a fighting job. There's also synergy. So you can send 2 heroes or 3 heroes or 4 heroes on a job. And if you send 2, maybe they're actually good friends and they're going to work together better despite their strengths and weaknesses. Or there is a character who can create copies of other heroes. So it'll effectively, you'll send two people on a 3-person job, and that other character then gets to basically double their stats because of the abilities that one character has. It's I was really blown away, man. I was really blown away by just its ability to tell an effective story about what it means to be a superhero, a hero, what it means to do good in the world, what it means to struggle with, maybe being dealt a raw deal and making the most out of it. It is fucking phenomenal, man. It is, I really, really don't know what else to say about Dispatch other than that I was blown away. And I think this is, like, no offense to the other Telltale people that worked on that, Star Trek Resurgence game, or the people that have been remastering the Sam & Max games. If you're okay with slightly less, gameplay interaction in favor of a much more well-written story with heartfelt moments and choices, but it also a superhero story that just has fucking fun with it, man. Like, for God's sakes, I'm talking about a guy who's like, running Ponzi schemes, who also is like half bat. Like, they have fun with, that. It's also a game that is really funny. It kind of pitches itself as like an office, like workplace comedy. And it is to an extent, but also, a lot of that humor is like they say on Steam, Dispatch is a superhero workplace comedy where choices matter, right? Manage a dysfunctional team of misfit heroes and strategize who to send to emergencies. Like, on paper, it might actually sound like potentially thin, but I think it really has it where it counts in terms of the writing and the characters and the performances. It also just like looks gorgeous. Like it's a scenario where those cutscenes are so well directed. They look so beautiful. Just a ton of style. It looks great. Like, I would watch a TV show of this. Like, if you stripped out all the choices stuff, and actually you can even turn off the QuickTime events. Like, if you'd want no QuickTime events, but just choices and the dispatching gameplay, you can absolutely do that. You can make it so the hacking minigame is you can always win it. Well, it's not that you can always win it. There's a no fail state. So like, you won't be punished if you fail the hacking minigame too many times. You can just keep doing it until you get it right. It's awesome, man. You should play. Like, this is the game I recommend to people who love a good story, want to feel like the choices matter, but also want something that is like both familiar and just different enough to feel fresh and exciting. Like, again, like, I've tried watching The Boys. It does fucking nothing for me. I never even bothered with Invincible. I've been down the road of goofy alternative superhero stories. This is the one. This is the one in terms of like getting these fuck up goofballs to, take themselves seriously and take the other, characters themselves seriously, take their, partners seriously. And, Robert and his story, it is fucking phenomenal. So I think I've said enough about Dispatch. It is my number one game of the year. Number one in my top 5, number one in my heart. So we're going to take our final break. We come back, we're going to talk most anticipated game as well as the future of content. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast, and congratulations again to Dispatch, my top 5, number one in the top 5 game of the year. I actually just finished Dispatch last night. I had 2 episodes left, and part of me feels like maybe you should play through the last 3 back to back, but you know, like I said, like it is not a super long game. Dispatch took me about 8 hours to beat. It's like 8 episodes long. So it's not terribly long. I think it's like $40 wherever you get it. You might get it on sale for cheaper right now with year-end sales, but please, for the love of God, if you like any of those goddamn Telltale games, if you'd like adventure games and you are down for a good story with wonderful choices and meaningful writing and storytelling, you got to play Dispatch. No ifs, ands, or buts. Doctor's orders. Now let's take a moment to talk about most anticipated. With most anticipated, there is a chance that some of these games don't make it to release in 2026. You never know. But what I want to do right now is kind of run through some of my most anticipated games for next year. And hopefully they're good ones. Starting things off with Resident Evil Requiem. For me, I have really become a fan of Resident Evil through the first person games like Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8 Village. I know that Resident Evil Requiem is going to have first person and third person, and it's going to have multiple playable characters and stuff like that. But to me, like that recent reboot, essentially, of Resident Evil games feel the most like a breath of fresh air. That's not to take away from Resident Evil 2, which is that remake of 2 is a phenomenal game. 3 is fun but short, and 4 is still pretty good, but maybe didn't need as much improvement over its original release. But regardless, like I have become a fan of Resident Evil in a way that I was not expecting, and Resident Evil Requiem is definitely one of my most anticipated games of the year. I've also never been a big Lego guy. I've just like those games are fine, but and they've made multiple Lego Batman games. So the fact that I'm sitting here excited about Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight, I think really is just an example of what you can do with the Lego formula when you're willing to play with it. And I think that's maybe my biggest problem with the Lego games over the last, I don't know, 10, 15, however long they've been doing this for, is they just felt like the same game, but with, Pirates of the Caribbean or Jurassic Park or Batman or Marvel or Star Wars. It's just like, oh, this is basically the same game, but you've reskinned it. Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight is not that. It has the Lego, style and look and flair to it, sense of humor, but it has the Dark Knight gameplay. The Batman Arkham gameplay, that combat, that timing based combat, and all of that stuff. And I think that is a fun twist, as much as it's not an original idea, like combining Batman Arkham with Lego. There's nothing original about that whatsoever. But the fact they're even trying to do that, I think is something that should be celebrated, and I'm hoping it's good. And that's why Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight is one of my most anticipated games for 2026. Unfortunately, 007 First Light was delayed, which I'm not particularly excited about. They did delay it. I'm going to pull up the release date in just a moment. I also wanted to just mention really quickly the release dates for the other games that I've mentioned in case you're trying to keep up with those. I'm pulling those up here in just a moment as I buy myself some time. I know that definitely some of these games don't have release dates. Resident Evil 9, for those interested in Resident Evil 9, is a Resident Evil Requiem, is coming out February 27th. That is end of February. Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight does not have a release date beyond, and this is really tentative, but they're saying May 29th for Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. We'll see. no release date yet for Switch 2. And 007 First Light has been delayed to May 27th of 2026 as well. Was originally supposed to come out, I believe, in March, then delayed to June. So for what it's worth, like, a delay doesn't damper my anticipation at all. Like, I'm still very game for 007 First Light. And some people have been talking like, oh, it's just going to be, Hitman with the James Bond skin. I fucking love Hitman. So if it is just, Hitman with the 007 name slapped on it, I'm going to be a little disappointed. But with the way they showed off the gunplay and the explosions and the combat and that stuff, like, if anything, I'm wondering how much Hitman is really going to be in it, because I'm thinking they may actually dumb down some of the Hitman qualities to make a more accessible James Bond game. Not that I think that's necessarily a bad thing. I just don't think that, like, Bond is a meticulously stealthy guy the way that Hitman Agent 47 is. So we'll see. But regardless, I'm very game. I think this is a terrific pairing of brand and property with developer. And 007 First Light, my number 3 most anticipated game of 2026. There is very little that we know about this game beyond the name and the location it's being set in, but it doesn't matter, because if you tell me you're making a new Forza Horizon game, I'm going to slap my knee and say, you son of a bitch, I'm in. Forza Horizon 6 supposed to come out in 2026, set in Japan, returning to more open world racing. It is coming out on PlayStation 5, but it is not going to be day and date with the Xbox and PC version that they confirmed. But it'd be nice. It's been a while. When did that last Forza game, Forza Horizon 5, come out? Forza Horizon 5 came out in 2021, so it's been a while. It has been a while since we have had a Forza game. Also, for those of you that forgot, Forza Horizon 5, which is a phenomenal game, now on PlayStation 5, that came out in April of this year. That is a game that you should play if you like racing and driving games. But as of right now, all we really know is that Forza Horizon 6 is being set in Japan, featuring a stylized version of Tokyo as the game's world, the main city of the game's world. Very exciting. Very exciting. I think Japan is a wonderful place to set a Forza Horizon game, and I can't wait for it to come out sometime in 2026. But my most anticipated game for 2026 was a game that was shown off at the Game Awards earlier in the month. That game being Control Resonant. I am ready for a new Control game, whether they follow up a lot of the stuff from Alan Wake 2, or if they mostly just follow up the stuff from the original Control game. That remains to be seen, but I do love the idea of switching from a shooter style gameplay in the first Control to more of a melee focused character action game in Control Resonant. I love Remedy, man. I love Remedy's games. And I'm very excited for whatever they do with Control Resonant. It'll certainly be better than FBC Firebreak from earlier this year, but that is maybe a mean thing to try to compare two games when obviously more attention and money and resources were put into Control Resonant versus something like FBC Firebreak anyways. But I can't wait to find out what's happening in the oldest house and all of that stuff in Control Resonant. So what we're going to do real quick, we're going to run through the lists one more time. My bottom 5 worst games were: number 5, Skate; number 4, Mario Kart World; number 3, Call of Duty Black Ops 7; number 2, Splitgate 2 / Splitgate Arena Reloaded / whatever they're calling it; and number 1, in my bottom 5 worst games, FBC Firebreak. Congratulations to every game on that list. My top 5 were: number 5, a game about digging a hole; number 4, Final Fantasy Tactics: The Evil East Chronicles; number 3, Donkey Kong Bonanza; number 2, Ball Pit; and number 1, my top game of the year, Dispatch. Congratulations to Dispatch and the rest of the games for making the list. My most anticipated are Resident Evil Requiem, which comes out February 27th. Lego Batman, Lego Batman, Legacy of the Dark Knight, which is coming out May 29th. 007 First Light, which is coming out now at its updated release date of May 27th. Forza Horizon 6, which does not have a release date, and Control Resonant. Now, last time we did a podcast, I said that I was going to be sharing some details as to why this podcast is ending. What does the future of content look like and things like that? And I would like to share that with you right here, right now. I want to provide you with a little bit of context for the history of this podcast. When this podcast first came out, it was not called Glitch Report. It was called The GnittWitt Show. And we saw, things change over the years with that show. The first show debuted in June of 2022. And I've enjoyed doing the podcast. I think that's, the thing I want to stress and emphasize is like, I like talking into this microphone. I like doing the show. But sometimes you got to know when to hold them and you got to know when to fold them. And the reason why I say that is because, even before that, I was putting out videos on YouTube. Well, actually not before that. Around that time, I had started putting out, videos on, YouTube. And the most significant year was in 2023. I promise you this is going to make sense. I'm going to talk a bunch of numbers, but just hear me out for a moment. In 2023, I started putting out videos on YouTube, and I got a yearly total view count of 12,059 views. That next year, in 2024, I got a total view count of 29,204. That is a 2.42 times year over year growth. This year, in 2025, I got 132,010 views for this year on YouTube. That is a 4.5 times year over year growth. I said I enjoyed doing the podcast, but I was never sure if the podcast was going to grow a sense of audience, if it was going to grow in terms of viewership or anything like that. And for the record, like, the podcast has grown to some degree, but it certainly did not grow the way that the YouTube channel that is mostly supported by short form videos grew. I can also tell you that, on average, well, not on average, in general, the podcast contributed very little to the growth of the YouTube channel. Like, there's not a lot about this, there's not a lot about this podcast that ended up contributing to the overall growth of the YouTube channel. And that's where I'm at, is that I want to create content and publish content and do things that grow the YouTube channel more than anything else. More than anything else, like, I want to be able to tell you, next year that I hit, 250,000 views, right? Or something like that, right? And when I say those views, I'm talking about the views that I obtained in that year, not my overall views. And to be honest, it's not all about the views. It's about, how long people watch and listen to the thing that I'm doing. Do they comment? Do they share that video? Do they like it? Clicking the like button. Do they follow and subscribe based on the content that I, produced? And the fact of the matter is that this year, the rubber met the road, especially in terms of the short form videos that I produced for YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. The rubber did not meet the road with the podcast, and I feel it is best for me to work with what is working And unfortunately, the podcast just was not working the way I needed it to, with the time that I spend doing it, with the energy that I've put into it. I have not received the return on investment that I was hoping for, or forget like even hoping for. Like I didn't go in. I did this because I wanted to talk about games. I just wanted to talk about games, talk about the industry, talk about the news. I didn't necessarily go into it with growth in mind, but I can tell you that growth has occurred in the other content that I produce. And that's where I feel like is best for me to continue to engage in and support, is the short form contents. It's exploring other video options that are not this podcast. So it might sound cold, it might sound calculated, but and I don't even know if I can have the same successful year in 2026 with my video and view count on YouTube as I did this year. Like, by all accounts, 4.52 times the views over last year seems like a hard thing to do again. I don't know if I'll do it, but I'm going to try so that I can grow my audience and, attract, people that may want to listen to a podcast in the future, right? That may be more interested in, that content, right? Because the people showed up for the shorts, right? People showed up for the short form video, and some people subscribed and still watch those shorts now. And that's growing. They just didn't stick around for the podcast. And unfortunately, the podcast is the weakest link in what I have done and what I've produced. And that is why I won't be able to continue producing the podcast in 2026. Other video content will be coming. I'm going to explore some other video ideas, which is why you should probably follow along on YouTube. That'll be the best place to do so for 2026. So with that, I want to say thank you for listening to not only this episode of the podcast, but any and all episodes of the podcast that you engaged with. Thank you for your recommendations, the questions, the comments you've had about topics to discuss on the podcast and everything else. 2025 was actually a massive year for me in terms of growth on YouTube, especially, and I hope to continue that trend. And I think I'll be able to continue that trend in a faster, more sustainable way without continuing the Glitch Report podcast. I'd love to get back to this at some point. Like, I don't know, maybe I'd come back to it in a year, maybe 18 months, maybe 2 years. I'm just throwing out, numbers. I'm not telling you that I'm going to be back. I don't know if I will, but I am continuing to do what I do. And if you'd like to continue to support, you can do so over on YouTube. I'm still streaming on Twitch on Fridays. We're still continuing to play Fallout 3, which I've been really enjoying. I don't know, again, how much streaming will happen in the future. Really, I have looked over numbers. I've looked over data. I've looked over, and I'm not even talking like trends. Like, I'm not out here trying to chase trends. I'm not out here trying to be something I'm not. I'm just trying to be the best version of what I can be based on what has worked for me in the past. So if you want to say I'm selling out or whatever, that's fine. There's no money in any of this, so I couldn't sell out even if I wanted to. But maybe one day I can. And we'll find out by continuing to do what we do in 2026. So thank you so much for checking out the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the games that you played this year. I really hope you give Dispatch a chance if you haven't had a chance to play it yet, because it is a wonderful game. And again, I'm rambling because I just want to say thank you for allowing me, supporting me to do this. And I hope you continue to do so in the new year, because it means a lot. I have been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree at linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. I am on Twitch, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube. Go click the subscribe on YouTube button, please. I am almost at 420 subscribers, which is the weed number, which I think is fun. And I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, man. That ain't slowing down. That's not stopping. And I hope you guys had a wonderful, holidays, a wonderful Christmas. I hope you have a safe and sane New Year's. I hope all your New Year's resolutions happen with grit and effort. And I will see you all in the new year. Take it easy.